Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and in this one I'll be teaching you a secret technique. Actually, not so secret technique. This technique is quite old. It's called glazing. So what is glazing? Glazing is basically a technique in which you would paint black and white, the first layer of your painting, wait for that to dry, then take oil paint and a bit of medium to paint transparent colors on top of your canvas, giving it a three-dimensional effect, making things look a lot more vibrant and a lot more realistic. So why this technique? This technique is one that I use every time when I have to save on paint, especially when oil paint can get quite expensive for certain mediums and certain pigments as well. So this helps me save on using too much color, and also is a great technique to experiment with, especially if you aren't too confident with values. This helps you experiment with getting better with values, your dark tones to your light, and saves money in the process. So this sounds like a fun technique that you can use within your artistic practice. Let's dive right in the video, and I'm gonna show you how to do this within a sec. Awesome, let's get started. So we're beginning the first step of the actual process. Right now, this is a pre-sketch that I did earlier, making sure to have all the preparations done, the sketch is out of the way, and things can now proceed where I can begin. So this is basically a canvas that I've done the sketch on before. Right now, we are going to use the simple colors that we have available, that all we need to use with actual technique. So we have black and white, but this is oil paint. You could also use acrylic paint as well. Just make sure that you first start with acrylic paint, then you paint on top of the acrylic paint base with oil paint. So basically, these are the colors that we're going to be starting with. One ivory black, titanium white, and I think Parisian blue or ultramarine blue, doesn't really matter, but one black, one white, and one blue tube, so that you know what you're starting with. Then we move on to actually putting the paint onto the palette board, whatever you call it. So yeah, so you put this onto your mixing tray, your palette preferably, and as you can see, these are the three colors that are separated. In preparation, the next step is you'd want to take the image that you have received, whether it's a reference that you already have available, and you'd want to convert the actual image from what it was in color to black and white. And why we do this in black and white is so that we can actually see the values for what they are, making it a lot easier to work with this technique. Because remember, we're not starting with color, we are starting with black and white to paint the reference as is. AKA the dead color layer, as in a way, the dead zone as I would call it. So right now I'm just judging the colors as they are accurately, mixing the black and the blue together, one part to one part, so they're not too dark. And now I'm looking back onto the reference, just trying to judge the colors as they are and adjusting the different shades and different tones as I go along. Also, I make sure to just observe different areas of the actual portrait, seeing the obvious highlights and the darkest darks. For example, you can see that there is the highlight of her actual attire, what she's wearing, which is like pure white. No, it's not actually pure white. I think the camera and the exposure settings make it look pure white, but it actually has a bit of nuance to it and a couple of shades to make it look like a white cloth that she's wearing. But for now, I'm just mixing the basic colors from the darkest darks to the brightest brights. You do not have to go extreme with this part. All you have to do is mix more or less an average of what the color looks like and what it represents on the actual reference, and just put that down, adding a bit of white and a bit of white onto the next mix of color that you want to put down onto the palette, so that you have a gradual gradation of color that is increasing in terms of its lightness from light to dark, just as a basic information that you can use to actually use as your pre-planned paint template that you can now use to paint from actually. So right now I'm just looking at a bit of nuanced colors. Sometimes one can get too carried away with this process, but also always remember that because this is an oil painting, you can always intermix different colors from different places and different swatches, making things easier, as one white could now blend into one gray-ish, if that makes sense. But yeah, don't think too much, mix an average mix of number of colors that you can just see to use as a guideline to start painting. Now at this point, I am applying the colors that I'd pre-mixed before on the actual painting, putting areas where look obvious when I'm looking at the reference for guidance. And normally I'd start from the darkest darks to the lightest lights, but normally in this case I would then now just mark out areas that might give me a bit of a problem to the detail so that the actual image comes out, and then put the highlights first to separate areas that I know that I can now go back and focus, because these are basically the two extreme areas, the darkest darks and the lightest lights. Most certainly the pure white areas of the shine of a head, or the reflection rather, and the dark areas of the neck and the nostril areas in the mouth and eyes, just so you can actually have a look at what it looks like. But the basic plan applies when you are actually painting this thing. All you're doing is painting in black and white, so it makes it easier to judge your gradation and tones of color easier, and you can actually see what goes where without thinking too much about color value in terms of how saturated or vibrant or chromatic it could be. And with that being said, I take my time with that aspect of it. This right here is me doing the final touches, just doing a bit of refinement onto the actual canvas itself. I tend to think of this as me creating a bit of a sculpture like painting before I start putting the paint, or rather the makeup in a sense, if I had to use a metaphor, making sure that areas are separated well. Now at this point, this is where a bit of magic happens. This is liquid gel. Basically it is a medium, oil paint medium, that you can use with oil paint. What happens is I had allowed the actual paint to dry before I mixed anything, before mixing that medium with the actual paint. Now right here I had skipped ahead of time because I had an exhibition, and when this was happening, so I had to paint it as fast as I could in order to get the progress running. All I'm doing right here is I'm painting thin layers of paint onto the actual dried black and white portrait below, giving it a bit of transparency when I'm painting. I took my time with that aspect of the actual process before I started filling in the background, just so that I can have a separation from the foreground and the background, so I can see things clearly and have to judge colors properly. So right here, it's not the final piece at the moment. This is a bit of a time-lapsed version of where I went with this painting, but basically I used the same principles as before, layer by layer, taking time as I could, and voila, this is painting right now. So at the moment, I don't know why the white is overexposed. I tried to fix this in pre-editing, but the white has a bit of nuance within her actual coloring of her attire, but I like how it turned out. Once you get past the black and white phase, when it's fully dried, the glazing becomes actually fun, and you could take as much time as you need refining your painting as you go along. So guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you guys learned a bit of tricks that you can take home with the glazing technique. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe button. Most importantly, don't forget to comment as well, and let me know what you'd like to see me drop. I have quite exciting projects that I'm working on, and I think it will be something that I would like to drop as soon as I can. But with that being said, keep having fun, keep it going, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Awesome. I'm out.